Hello, welcome to the Weekly Brew here at Redefining Success with Emma and Iona. Welcome, Iona.
Welcome, Emma. The Weekly Brew is a space where we get to share our journey into abundance and creating a soul-led business. So, Emma, what's brewing for you?
So, what was brewing this week has been around emergence in self emergence. Also, buzzing. I've been hearing a lot of flies, which is really annoying. So I think that's like what things that irritate me and how to not let them irritate me. So that sense of coming back into centre of myself, and a lot of who am I working in partnership in this new space. Like there's been a transformation, hasn't there? It feels like there has for what we're creating. We've come through the first bit of what we're creating. There's been this death and rebirth, and we're in this new space of emergence. And I think that buzzing energy has been good for me in terms of, okay, I can just let go of stuff that I don't need, or it's been like a mirror of, and actually we've actually got a fly in here with us today as well. It's saying to me, what do I need to pay attention to, and what do I need to just release? That there's always going to be buzzing going on, or irritating things, or obstacles coming into my energy field. So can they just be like water off a duck's back, or are they bringing some gifts that I need to pay attention to? And then that's coupled with what we're doing in terms of the next step of creating our business, and the expansion of that, and also we're both at milestones, aren't we, in terms of personal losses. So we're going to be marking that very especially by taking a trip to Stonehenge this solstice. So that's really exciting.
Wow, that's a lot.
There's
Emma.
a lot.
There's a lot there.
Well,
a lot there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what came up when you were talking was I've just been in Jersey, and the first morning I woke up with 2 ticks on my body, because obviously we've been out to Dartmoor. So that was quite horrifying, but I was with, what does that mean? Because obviously we quite shamanic, and everything that comes in, it's what is the symbolism, what is it trying to tell us? So again, it's that what's taking my energy, that parasitic energy, and in a positive way, what am I holding on to? Because ticks kind of leech on and they hold on, and so for me it was like, yeah, there's positive aspects of really getting going with something, like with a website, with the building of the structures, to really put my energy into something and not let go, to keep going until I have that breakthrough in creating that structure. And also just being aware of what do I need to let go of, which might be old ways of not having balance, not keeping the balance between the masculine and the feminine. So I've been making sure I go out for our exercise in whatever way that is, and just getting that balance. The biggest cycles for us are, we started with the death and rebirth. We've both gone through a massive big clearing out cycle, which was very challenging for both of us in our own ways. But what's coming through that is an emergence into a new space. And what I was sharing with Emma before we came on is, when you go through really difficult times, that death and that rebirth, it takes you to the deepest part of yourself, where you have to let go. Life forces you to let go. You don't have, with death, you don't have a choice. It just happens to you. It feels, like for me, it felt like I've been robbed, actually, because I lost my mum in the last 2 years. It's coming up for 3 years now. So it feels like that clearing out, but then coming into a new field where what's possible now, what's possible in this new space. And we didn't know. And we went off like the fool in the tarot to go and explore the unknown, to follow our joy, to go to the beach, to go for walks, to just be with life showing us the way. And I think that Fool card in the tarot very much symbolizes that journey of coming out of a very difficult time, the rebirth, and now we're in a new space.
Yeah. You speaking about your mum obviously brings to mind and heart the loss of my son, which was at the same time as Ona's mum died, and he died unexpectedly. So there was a huge, shock that I had to process, and then going through those death valleys are super challenging, especially when the death has come as a shock. So I had absolutely no idea where life would take me, and it's really it's amazing in one sense and also not in another how long it takes to work with death energy, actually. And that we're in a society that says you're supposed to get back to work after a certain amount of time. Like his dad, my son's dad, was given a really good chunk, substantial amount of time, months off, to grieve and to be with us. However, in the big scheme of things, that's less than a blink of an eye. You know, this goes on, and you learn to live with the big grief pool, but then life gets bigger and brighter again around that. So for me, it's like, well, I can always dive into that, but I don't really want to. And I've done so much processing around it that now I really am emerging, and with this amazing partnership of the business, and in a way we've been on such a parallel journey for so many years. Our lives have been parallel. I mean, it's quite extraordinary, really. And so it's really amazing to come together and co-create in this way, and to like we were talking earlier and saying how we wish that everybody could realise the benefits of co-creating rather than holding on to something tightly, that this is mine and I don't want anyone to see it or know it until I launch it and I do this and I do that. Whereas actually, if you take a big deep breath and just let it all out and flow, and then invite others in and begin this co-creation, you end up with so much beauty and also infinite possibilities, I think. Like nature is co-creating all the time.
Yeah, and we're definitely moving into a place of co-creating now, where competition is becoming something of an older paradigm, and we're learning that through co-creation so much more is possible, and that's what we are unlocking. There's so much more abundance, there's so much more joy. And what I'm experiencing is the transformational process of us emerging into this new field of growing a soul-led business together is joyful, it's fun. It's not the transformation that I've been led to believe is necessary, which is taking yourself to the edge of a cliff and then facing your fears that are so terrifying, but you've got to kind of launch yourself off the cliff and face your fears. And that's quite a brutal process, actually, for the nervous system. And what I'm experiencing now is this coming together in partnership, where actually for me to step out onto camera, onto lives, into doing what we're doing now, I want a partner with me. I want someone to hold my hand, and let's go together. Let's go together into this new territory. Why? Because it's fun doing it with someone.
Yeah, it is.
It's not as fun doing it on my own. No. We both have creative ideas. When I forget something, Emma remembers it, and vice versa. So there's so many benefits to partnership, isn't there?
Two brains are better than one.
Yeah, and we're just loving this journey, which I know it wouldn't be happening if I was on my own, because I wouldn't be able to do this on my own. It just wouldn't happen. So there's something amazing about coming together, co-creating, coming into partnership, and then seeing what wants to blossom between you in that co-creative energy.
Yeah, and it's like in the old indigenous cultures with that, it takes a village to raise a child. It's the same principle, that it's this co-creation. Everyone works together, and everyone brings their own creative skills, their ideas, their resources, and then they can flourish when it's held in that space where everyone's holding those sacred seeds and watering them and nourishing them and feeding them and bringing resources in. Then imagine the abundance that can grow from that. There's infinite possibilities. We're not saying you can't do this on your own. We're saying it's abundantly better and fruitful and more fun, basically, to share the journey. And I've had the experiences that Oona was talking about with jumping off the cliff, and there's lots of practices out there that say face your fears, hold the mirror up, look, and that's really frightening for the nervous system, and it puts the nervous system on heightened red alert. And actually we don't want that. We want the nervous system to feel safe, to feel relaxed, so that when tricky times come ahead, or obstacles, or that irritating buzzing that I was talking about at the beginning, it can differentiate and decipher between what is necessary to go through and how can I be resourced going through that, and what actually can I just let go of, and I don't need to be on red alert about that anymore. It can actually go. And so the way of emerging, as we explained, we've been on some very intense grief journeys this last few years. And we've done it with deep, conscious care and attention and tenderness to ourselves and our hearts and our souls and our minds and our nervous systems. And then we've come together through that to create this. And so from that, what looked like was despair, actually some seeds were sown, and now we're watering them, and we're beginning to see ourselves grow. Which is really beautiful.
Yeah, because it's that journey into the underworld.
Yeah.
You know, when you go down into the underworld, you having to face yourself so intensely. You're having to be so present with yourself, with all your shadows, with all your fears, with your feelings, so intensely that there's this process of, going down to excavate everything in your deepest depths. And 2 years ago, I went through a lot. It wasn't only the death of my mum. It was various things back to back that took me into such a deep, challenging place in my life, where I had to go on that journey and emerge with my power, with so much energy, with so much force coming through me, that's absolutely ready to do what it takes to take care of myself, to champion my own soul, to say I'm no longer compromising myself. I'm no longer giving myself away in a way that isn't absolutely aligned to my soul. So there's no more leeway in compromising myself anymore. So as the energy comes through, it's like my personality is fully behind my soul emergence, and bringing through all that energy, all that power to stand for my soul emergence, to stand for that note, that voice that wants to come out, that wants to sing, and to be able to set those boundaries against anything that's going to compromise that. So it's like a little seed that's wanting to emerge, and you put around a protective shield so that it can emerge. And then you say, okay, what does that seed need to emerge? How can it feel safe? It's not going to feel safe with no protection. So, what would feel better is having a partner, or what would feel better is this or that, and getting the resources that seed needs to grow. And so that is me, that is my soul emergence. And life, when it brings what I need, when I'm conscious enough, as Emma's saying, when you're present and you're conscious and you say to life, I want this for myself. I want to bring through the fullness of me. I'm willing to do everything it takes to face all my shadows, all my fears, And to do it in that kind way where I fully resource myself, I protect myself with all that I need to feel I can emerge. And when all those resources come in, then there's just this gorgeous feeling of the seed getting fed with water and nutrients, and it's a joyful emergence, a joyful transformation. And this process we're in now feels to me like a swelling of my seed into who I am, rather than a jumping off the cliff. And it just feels such a beautiful, wonderful process to be in.
Yeah, and it does. So life will bring challenges in different sizes and shapes, and so that when we're saying to meet those with what we're saying is that they will give you the shock. They will shock the nervous system. We're not denying that. That is what happens. That's what our nervous system does. It's how it responds to challenges and difficult situations, and it's then how you work with that. Do you become a victim of your circumstances, or do you gather those resources, look into yourself kindly with kind, tender eyes, compassionate hearts, and then say, okay, how do I work with this? And through that process, there can be this joyful emergence. It's not like you've jumped off the cliff. You may have had like a cliff experience, but you haven't jumped off it and ended up splattered on the ground. You've been able to go down with your rucksack, your sandwiches, your drinks, your ropes. And so part of that may have been tough, and part of it may have been a good experience. And certainly what will emerge is a more deeper, fuller, riper, potent, stronger, more embodied, more able version of yourself. And, you know, even though you may not want that, I've had really challenging experiences in my life. I thought, well, no, I don't want this. You know, screw you all. I'm not here for that. And then eventually, it's like, okay, yeah, I need to look at myself kindly and go on this journey, and then, yeah, become more than I ever could have anticipated, actually. And now doing this, which I didn't think was going to happen at all, didn't even cross my mind that we'd be doing this.
No.
It's really amazing.
It's so amazing. I'm so loving the spontaneous emerging of this process.
Me too.
Nothing that we planned or expected or even dreamt of. Life just gathered us, and this is happening. So so we're not saying that there isn't fear. We're not saying that it isn't challenging.
Because it is.
Yeah.
And it is scary too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What we're saying is, don't get sucked into that. You can acknowledge that, let it flow through your body, and then say, okay, where do I go from here then? Because with fear and all of that difficult stuff, there's still the compassionate, abundant, joyful, creative part of you, part of us, that's present too. It's just had a bit of a shock, and so how can you bring it back to life and tend to it?
That's gorgeous. And just to share, Emma and I have completed our website, so we're going to be launching that. We are starting to offer transformational gateways, which are going to be gateways through different transformational portals that we have uncovered in our transformational journey. There's certain gateways, key energies that come up to be met and to be navigated through. And because we've been on the transformational journey for over 50 years between us, we do have a feel of the territory of how to navigate through these different gateways. So this is going to be our offering that we're putting out to the world. We're starting with death and rebirth. This is not something that came from our head. This is a process that we've been guided through. So death and rebirth was what wanted to be started with first. And it's because we have been through this underworld journey, and it kind of needs to be acknowledged. It needs to be honored. And we need to complete with that. And we need to acknowledge where our energy is coming from now to emerge into this process. It's coming from our descent. It's coming from that deep journey we have been on. And so we honoring ourselves for that descent, for that journey, and now we're bringing that death and rebirth doorway to you as our first transformational doorway. And what we're going to be doing is consistently going through the doorways, the gateways, and seeing what emerges. So we don't know what order they're going to come in, what they're going to look like. We are letting life guide us through these doorways. And on our website, you'll be able to find under each gateway some beautiful transformational tools that you can work with for that gateway, which include breathwork meditations, transformational tales that I'm writing, guided journeys, and whatever tools that come to us to support you through those gateways.
Please remember to like and subscribe, because it really helps boost our posts and gets us to a wider audience.
Great. So on that note, so much love.
So much love. Here's to redefining success.
We'll see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.